If you work with children with autism or developmental delays, we are going to dive into a topic that's rarely discussed, unfortunately, in the field of speech pathology. And if you are a speech pathologist or a speech pathology assistant, this is something you need to know because it's going to be highly prevalent in the children you work with if you work with children with autism or developmental delays. What we're talking about today is known as Cortical Visual Impairment, or CVI. It's also known as Cerebral Visual Impairment, with CVI as well. We'll talk about why we prefer cerebral visual impairment as we dive into this a bit later, but this is what you need to know if you're working with children with developmental delays or autism. And that is because it's going to be highly prevalent and it's going to impact their communication. It's going to impact their overall socialization and motor skill development. So what we're discussing here is not vision in the sense of can you see it, can you not see it, sort of like the eye chart. We're talking about visual processing. So the reason the word was changed, just to give you a little bit of background, is when you hear the word cortical visual impairment, you think this is something in the visual cortex. In the back of the brain, there's some damage there, and that's why we have visual processing issues. Now, we know better today that vision is processed throughout the brain. Vision is something far away, something close away, how we judge the movement of it, and then also the visual identification. So vision is processed throughout the brain. So they changed the word from cortical visual impairment to the more popular term of cerebral visual impairment for that reason. It's very much in the same way in our field we used to call language impairment specific language impairment. And we changed that to developmental language disorder, recognizing that if you have a language impairment, it's likely there's going to be other developmental domains that are negatively impacted. If you have a visual processing impairment, it's many areas of the brain that is impacted that accounts for that visual difference. Okay, it could be a connectivity issue. So looking at this article, this is a really exciting article, and this is an AJSLP. It's called an evidence-based approach to augmentative and alternative communication design for individuals with cortical visual impairment. Now, even though it says for AAC, the strategies that I'm going to present to you today from this article are just in general. So of course they apply to AAC, but how are you going to present the materials when you're teaching a child or when you're interacting with a child and working with a child in consideration that there are some visual processing challenges? So I want you to think in both and all of the above sort of manner. These are the strategies that are going to work. So I'm going to share with you 10 strategies from this article that you can put into practice right now so that you can more effectively help these children process visual information. Now, the earlier you can do this, the better, because what happens when children have visual processing difficulties is it affects their communication. So if you have a visual processing difficulties, you're not sure what the person is referring to or talking about or where you should be focusing your attention. So that's an obvious issue. But also in terms of social interaction, you're not sure where the conversation is going because we use our eye contact to take turns in conversation, to pass that baton back and forth, to hold the floor, to give the floor back to someone, to comment on something, we use eye contact. So is that social interaction piece that's huge with visual processing. How close are we to other people? How far away we are to other people? And then there's also visual processing in the sense of motor skill development. My children with visual processing issues, the ball goes down and hits the floor, and then they bring their hands together to catch it. The visual processing is so slow and so misjudged in terms of timing that it affects their ability to interact and play with others. So these are just some obvious examples, but you can think also of cognitively. And when you're learning new material, you need to know where your attention should be focused. And when you're learning the material, and if you have visual processing issues, your attention might be focused on the light above and you're staring at the light instead of staring at the individual and the important information they're sharing with you. So this is something that you really want to take seriously earlier on instead of later because of the Matthews effect, because we have these developmental windows that open and close with neuroplasticity in the brain, and we want to hit these milestones earlier so later milestones can develop. The Matthews effect is the haves will have more and the have-nots will have less. So if this child is missing some very key crucial pieces of information early on, such as the social interaction piece and how we use eye contact to modulate our conversations, you can see how that would impact them later on in having conversational speech back and forth pragmatically, the very early level. So this is something if you work with 0 to 3, if you work with preschoolers, this should be right in the front of your mind. And unfortunately, I think perhaps many of you that are listening, this is the first time you've heard the words cerebral visual impairment or cortical visual impairment, even though many of your clients are presenting with it. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into this research. So looking at this article, this is from AJSLP, and it's in 2023. The first step that they recommend, and this is what I did this morning. I came into work an hour early this morning because my room was a mess. If anyone else can understand, you totally get it, is because I am doing testing right now because the progress reports are due this week. So I'm testing children with autism, and I want to know, what do you know? I have all of the cause effect bin toys out because I'm like, I'm going to give you this ping pong ball to put down the chute every time you respond to this question because you're not doing it for social reasons. I'm doing testing, right? So I have all of these cause effect toys out. On top of that, we have St. Patrick's Day. So I don't do this with all of my kiddos, but some of my kiddos love crafts. And the ones that love crafts, I'll bring out the St. Patrick Day crafts for them because this is special. So we're making bracelets, we're making shamrock wreaths. And then I also have my CIS membership, the movement activity. So when you looked into a corner of my therapy room where I was doing the testing and I was doing the art activities and I was doing the CIS movement activity, it just looked like a squatter was living there. It looked really like, oh my goodness. And the reason I came in early was not out of embarrassment. I can only show you one thing at a time, and I hide all the rest. So this is not going to work when you look at Miss Kelly and you see mountains of art activities behind her, cause effect toys behind her. Her CIS membership activities, are here too, which with the movement activities, which were a lot of fun this week. They worked really well, but it was just like too much visual stimuli. So the number one thing you're going to want to do with visual processing is limit the amount of distracting stimuli. So clean your room. Now, when I'm saying clean your room, think about cleaning your room not only in terms of the amount of objects you have that are out, what are the walls looking like? Thinking about what is the noise? Is it a noisy room? And thinking about the lighting in your room. Is it really bright fluorescent light in which the child is going to be looking up at the light, or can you dim the lights? I actually use lamp lighting in my room because I have fluorescent lighting or lamp lighting, and the fluorescent lighting, I want the child's attention to be on me, to be on the object. So I use lamp lights so I don't have to worry about that. So the very first thing we want to do is clean our room. Now, when I'm presenting objects in therapy, what I do is I'll have a bin always next to me, like near my feet, and I'm kind of like an octopus. I'll pull out the bin. So first of all, if I'm doing my CIS movement activities, the first thing that I'll pull out is the treatment target. We're going to do the treatment target sentence, paragraph, whatever it is, the AAC device. That's all you're going to see is this communication target. Then I'll put that away. Then after that, I'll pull out the stickers. So then they're going to pick from the stickers and then the corresponding object that goes with it, the 3D object, if there is one, then they go ahead and do that. Then I'll put that away. Then I'll pull out the checklist. So I'm only pulling out one item at a time, and then I'm putting it next to my feet under the table so they can't see it, out of sight, out of mind. Then we rinse and repeat. Out comes the treatment target. You're focused on the treatment target. Treatment target goes away. All right, next comes the stickers. Now we're focusing on the stickers and the visual display of the stickers. You're going to focus on the checklist. You're going to find something on the checklist. You're going to circle it. So there's only one thing at a time. Clean your room so that their focus, all of their cognitive load is on what you're focusing on at that time and at that present moment. Okay, so that's step one. Very important. Clean your rooms just for the purpose of cleaning. Because I thought of, I got 5 kiddos I'm going to see today, and these children are highly visual distracted. And even though I have everything kind of stuffed under my desk, you can see it. So I was like, we got to get rid of all of this. Number two, show less. And what I mean by showing less, I'm saying that you were going to start with one item at a time and then build slowly. So if you're using the high-tech AAC devices and you have a child that is highly visually distracted, now you're going to see these children that are highly visually distracted because what I can often tell, I know what they're looking at because they don't have good, a lot of them don't have good ocular motor control. So what I mean by that is they're actually turning their head instead of using their eyes. It's kind of like what you see in our children with apraxia, where they're using their jaw instead of differentiating with the lip movement. So when they're talking, they talk like Cookie Monster. They're using the jaw. When our children with ocular motor visual processing issues are looking at something, they're using their neck. Like they're like a little wobblehead, like a bobblehead. These are children that likely, if you give them the screen of 84 and say, okay, let's go, I'm going to model and you're going to pick this up, that's too much visual distraction. So what I do is on all of these robust systems, what you can do is hide symbols to start so that maybe it's only one even symbol that shows in the beginning. And maybe that one symbol that you're showing in the beginning is go, and they are visually scanning and they're finding that little half-inch by half-inch square and they're pressing it and then the device goes. Okay, we're just starting with one thing. We're giving them that positive momentum. We're giving them success. And then from that, we can fade in more and more symbols. But it's just like, we're just giving them that process of motor planning, motor programming, simplified, and then we just more and more and more over time. So starting with just one symbol, even if you have a child that has a high level of visual distraction, and then you're just letting more symbols pop up and pop up and pop up. Okay, so now let's look at step three. Step three is use what the child already knows. So maybe, for instance, the child, you know that they've been working already with this symbol and the more symbol. And a lot of people don't like the more symbol because more can be anything, of course. So we're going to say, okay, let's use that more symbol. And then we're also going to pair that with something that's like stop, if you want to stop something, right? So you would go more and they press more and more and more and more. And then when they're all done, maybe they press stop. You're adding that symbol to what they already know. So you have in the food thing, you have the goldfish crackers. They know that item. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, I'm going to do something that they don't like to make it meaningful. If they press that, I'll hand them that. You could do that forced choice, or you could just say, okay, this is something you know, and now I'm going to add another symbol onto this. Okay, so this is an orange goldfish cracker. This next one is going to be like a black Oreo cookie, very visually different. We're going to use what you already know, and then we're going to provide something contrasting. Now, it could be contrasting in something you like, it's something that you don't like, something that you like, something that's a very different color, something that you like, something that's a very different function, feature, class, something that's very, very different, that's going to get a different response. And the whole name of the game here is you want to make learning meaningful because the visual processing skills are so impaired. They're working harder on their end. So the response has to be a bigger deal, right? So you want to kind of make it be like, okay, this is whether or not you're going to get a cookie or whether or not you're going to get a cracker. Like, this is meaningful, or this is a way different color than this. So just thinking about how you can foil kind of the Shakespearean technique where you pick up something that's opposite or way different than the other things really stands out. Okay, so you can see how you would do that in AAC when you're looking at a board. And the same thing when you're doing that with a learning task. If you're showing a new concept, you can do it with something like, it's a, and they get that, and they're like, okay, it's a, and then you bring out something that's different. And it's just like, okay, compared to something I already know, now I get it. When we're doing this sentence strip, I like to use look at, and the child's always saying look at because it's been automatized. The motor planning and the motor programming and starting speech is the hardest part. And then I can always add a different word on at the end. So I'm using what the child already knows, and then that has automaticity, and then I'm adding on something novel at the end of it. And then the child is more likely to say that word at the end, which could be strawberry, a blueberry, a cherry, a pear, an apple, a novel word, because we have that look at already going there. Okay, let's look at step 4, finding their sweet visual spot. Now, this is really important because a lot of times you read these articles on cortical visual impairment or cerebral visual impairment, whichever they refer to it as, and they'll say, put things at a child's midline. And the reason I wouldn't recommend that, and this article doesn't either, is because everyone has a different sweet spot. And for some children, the midline, they're not seeing anything. They're peripheral viewers. So they're looking to the left or they're looking to the right to see things. So you really have to see each individual child and whether they see things better up lifted high or whether they see things lifted low or on the left or on the right. Now, what I tend to really see this in is if I give a test like the PLS-5, for instance, right? And I'm giving that test and they'll be like, show me all the things shaped like a star or something like that on the left of the picture. Show me all the things shaped like a circle, only on the left. And they're not seeing anything on the right, but they're getting everything on the left. That's when I'm like, okay, this child, their sweet spot is looking to the left of them in terms of their visual motor integration processing. Then when I look at the top, for instance, I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, okay, show me all the ones that are toys. And they're picking just the toys on the top row and not on the bottom row. And then I'll even like cover the top row. Now show me all the toys. So they can only see the bottom row. You're finding like, oh, they're getting it right when I put it here or there. The way you want to do this is something that you know the child knows. So maybe if the child knows their letters, like it's no one's business, go ahead and put those letters out in front of them and ask them, where's the X? Maybe the X is in the top left area. And they don't know it. But then you're just like, okay, where's the B? And the B is in the bottom right, and they got the bottom right, and then they're getting all the letters on the bottom right, but not on the top or not on the left. You're like, this is their sweet spot. So that's a really good way to figure it out is if you just kind of take symbols or pictures that they know, and then you put it in front of them and see where they're accurate at identifying them. Okay, number 5. Now, this is really important because a lot of people, and in this article, they said bring it closer. Now, it could be bring it closer or bring it farther away. So it's almost like they're kind of like me when I hit a certain age and I realized I needed reading glasses, or holding things far away. I find some children, and you might see this as well, when they're working with their devices, they like to stand up because it gives them further distance and they manipulate the device better. If they're sitting and they're about a foot away from their device, they can't use it well at all. They need to be standing, so they're like a good solid 2.5 feet away from the device, and then they're able to visually scan it. So look at the different children. Look at why are they always standing when they use the device on their own in the classroom? You never see them sitting using the device. Or when they're sitting, they're not able to use it right, or they're not able to use it with fluency. When they're standing, they're like whipping out all these letters and words. That's a good clue, if everything else is the same, that this is a child that's almost like you can think of it as farsighted, even though that's not what it is. But it's like, oh, you need to pull it back for them to manipulate it, or you need to bring it forward, and then they're manipulating it. I can really tell when I see them alone with their device and where they like to position it, whether they like to position it far away from themselves or close up. Okay. So let's look at number, and that of course is going to affect how you do therapy and how you present materials in therapy. Are you going to present them farther away from them or closer away from them? Okay. Number 6, add movement. So this is really, really important because movement activates the visual system. And you can think of it almost like if you think of a child and you want to get their attention and you shake a rattle, you have the hearing and you have the movement and they're like, oh, look at this, right? Because we're really wanting to develop those skills in which you're able to shift your eye gaze, shifting eye gaze, right? So think about how can I draw attention to an object? And very much like you would with a baby. So there's a couple things you can do. You can make it multimodal. So if you want to draw attention to, suppose you have in your hand a duck, you might go like quack, 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 quack. You know what I mean? And you might make the quacking sound. The duck makes like the squeaky duck where you press the squeak, 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 and you're moving it, right? And you can even add light to it, where it's like you have a light device that's pointing to it, a light that goes on to really multimodally be like, this is what we're looking at. Bring your attention here. Okay. And so adding that movement, you can kind of think of that as the rattle technique, shaking the rattle. But anytime you're bringing attention to something, you can add movement. Now, what I like to do is I like to hand it in my hand, and I'll just be like, it's out, and then woof it out with my hands. But definitely their eyes are there. It's almost like a ready, set, go. So I'll be like, it's, and then I'll show it to them like that. So you see that movement with the hands is like pay attention to this. Okay. Right. The next theory is to wait. So just like with auditory processing, a lot of times we give 10 to 15 seconds for our children with language delays. We also have to think about the visual processing. And I see this all the time with our kiddos. It's almost like the Jeopardy song is going on, and then they do it. Now they do it like 15 seconds after you said it. So that's another thing that you're going to see with visual processing challenges. You're going to see that latency, and that's what it looks like. So it's important to give them that time so that they can actually, because we have kind of a use it or lose it brain, so they can actually practice that skill of visual processing and then acting on it, which is that visual motor integration. So both of those skills are going to be delayed if we don't wait. We need to wait. We can't do the child's push-ups for them. The only way they're going to learn is by doing, by actively using the visual processing system, actively using and engaging in visual motor integration. All right, number 8. Don't force the look and the reach together. So this is very important. We're going to allow sequential behaviors. So for instance, I have a sentence strip, right? And this is my favorite, my look at sentence strip. With the look at sentence strip, I want them to point at it, right? But first of all, they might need to look at it, right? So I'm going, okay, look at. And then if they're all looking around, it's not going to make sense for me to take the child's finger and put the child's finger on it. Wait till the child looks, then take the child's finger. And then the child will point to it as you're spoken, do the print referencing, which is very important. So first, I want to get the child's visual attention. After getting the child's visual attention, then we can do the print referencing. So don't try to do two things at once. This is very challenging for the children. You're asking them to perform a fine motor behavior that requires visual motor integration at the same time that they are doing a visual processing. Let them do the visual processing. Then the visual motor integration act, not two at the same time. Number 9, use color and contrast. So what we're talking about here is some benefit if they're using the AAC device from a darkly lit black background with white type, for instance, white print. Some benefit from a yellow background with bold red, kind of the McDonald's colors, but thinking about how we can do very contrasting and thinking about this color and contrast. So when I have the options on BoardMaker and TD Snap, which symbols to use, I'll pick the ones that have more picture to them. So for instance, if it's yes, I'm not just going to pick the green check mark one. There's a big green circle that has a check mark in it, that has a thumbs up, that has the bold yes print, that really makes it salient. This is like green stoplight go, right? And then the X is the same thing for no, I'm not going to just pick that red X and be like, that's just not enough information. I want it to really stand out. So I think if you're looking at a child with visual motor processing issues, go for more of the pictures, the photos, the more, more is more, that really not our simple black and white line drawings that are not very distinguishable. It just all looks the same to a child with visual motor impairment. We want it to be really concrete, that this is like sitting, this is like walking. They're very different. It is nice that we have computers and it's so easy for you to simply get a stock web image off that you can use for free from Canva or something, or a picture from Canva that really better illustrate these actions and these nouns for our kiddos. When we're talking about that, getting back to movement, the research has indicated that many of these children benefits from sort of these Giphies, in which, for instance, if they're verbs, I know that Schlosser did a lot of research with this with AAC, if the verb is acting out, like the verb is eat, they find that many children with autism do, where you actually see the movement. It's very concrete. This verb is walking, it shows someone walking. This verb is swimming, it shows someone swimming. So thinking about how we can make this more concrete and less like line drawing, or there's a little detail that differentiates symbol A from symbol B. Now, number 10, I think, is the most important step of all, and that is make learning active. So these children are not going to improve their visual processing through flashcards. They're not going to improve their visual processing through pictures. It has to be a task-oriented movement activity. So for instance, at a very easy level, you can think of a shape sorter, right? And you get that the goal is to get the shape in the device. There's a consequence to it. You get feedback to it. You pick up the star. You're going to fit the star in that star container, and you're going to let it drop, and you're going to get that feedback that it actually worked. You're only going to be able to do it if you put it in the right space. There's this natural consequence. So in task-oriented movement activities, what I'm doing is entirely visual motor integration, in which you're every step of the way, you're doing visual motor integration from the treatment target, in which you're doing the cues, the multimodal cueing with the child. Then the second step after that, you're visually scanning from a visual array, and you're selecting an object or a picture based on, or you're searching for it in a sensory room, to the next one where you're looking at a sign and you're matching the sticker you have down to the sign, and it's giving you that visual motor integration, which it perfectly sticks on, and you put it where it belongs. Then you're coming back to your seat, you're using that visual motor integration to record what you did and look for, okay, I put the cat on the board, let me find the cat, let me check the cat off, I put the cat on the farm, the cat's where it belongs. So what you have is everything is purposeful. There's a reason for everything. Everything that you're doing is a visual processing, but not only are you processing, you're then using visual motor integration to act upon it, where you're using your vision and movement together in a complex manner. Now, what the research indicates is children with autism, they have a lot of difficulty, much more than your neurotypical peers, with visual motor integration, in which you have a goal of what you want to do, and you're using your vision and your motor skills together to accomplish that goal. So that is my final message, is to roll up your sleeves, and movement matters. If you want to learn how to catch a ball, you got to play catch, right? You don't learn that through flashcards. You don't learn that about reading about how to play ball. You learn it by doing, and then you get feedback from doing. So movement matters. If you're a speech pathologist, you got to get movement into that therapy session. We need to stop treating a mouth and start treating a child. But today specifically, we talked about visual motor integration, visual processing. This is huge. This is the elephant in the room that no one's talking about, but we should all be talking about it. Because if you work with children with developmental disabilities, if you work with children with autism, even if you're working with children with developmental language disorders, I can bet you that you have children on your caseload right now that have significant visual motor processing, visual motor integration challenges. So how are you DSDing? How are you DSDing for these children so that these children are not missing out on these important learning opportunities in terms of language, in terms of socialization, in terms of motor skills, in terms of cognition? What are you doing differently? So at the end of the day, it's all 3 steps, right? Number 1, clean your room. Number 2, you want to make it stand out. Whatever you're presenting, make it stand out. And how are you going to do that? Remove the visual distraction, and you're going to make it bolder. And number 3, you've got to use movement. Learning is an active process. It's not a passive process. We'll end on do what you do best, roll up your sleeves, and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You are always going to be first.